Hello, welcome to BusinessWorld's one-on-one interview series on innovations reshaping the future of key industries. And today, we look at future-proofing workspaces for a better normal. Let's look at how disruptions in the past more than 2 years have changed the landscape for real estate, particularly office spaces. Joining us for his views on this matter is Mr. Jericho Go. He is Senior Vice President at Robinson's Land and also President and CEO of RL Commercial REIT.
RLC's decades of real estate experience and exceptional standards bring you a new asset class. Comes RLC launches RL Commercial REIT Incorporated, or RCR. Largest in market cap at 73.1 billion, based on March 31, 2021 share price of 7 pesos and 35 centavos per share. Largest IPO size of 23.5 billion pesos. Widest geographical coverage with presence in 10 cities spread over Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Longest land lease tenure of up to 99 years. Largest portfolio valuation. ESG driven. Office gross leasable area of over 480,000 square meters. Widest geographical coverage. All 16 RCR properties are PESA registered and BPO grade. Longest land lease tenure of up to 99 years. RCR's presence in major business hubs and in growing urban cities outside of Metro provides a host of opportunities by building promising careers, better quality of lives in the local communities, having the freedom to live, work, play, and inspire.
Welcome to this interview, Mr. Go.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Okay, first let's have your observation on how the past 2 years have changed the design of office spaces and buildings, especially with your project.
Oh, thank you for that question, Willie. So I know for a fact that we've all gone through this very challenging times during COVID. And because of that, we've seen a lot of changes have to be made in the offices. For example, in the case of Robinson's offices, we just recently transferred to our new office here at the 20th floor of Cyberscape Alpha. And this was actually a labor of love, to say the least. No? We've seen that there had to be a lot of changes made. Number one, we've seen in the past that we've had very small areas allocated for workstations or desks, about 5 square meters to 6 square meters. But because we needed to create some distance for physical distancing, then we've seen that allocation grow to about 6 to 8 square meters. But more importantly, there have been discussions whether it makes sense to put up acrylic barriers to provide some sort of like protection. But we've seen also that through the years or through the months that it may not be as effective after all. One other thing that I think we've realized is that it was important to create a lot of this collaboration of or flexible workspaces, where a lot of the people, once they're able to go back on site, are able to meet with their colleagues and strategize or create plans, no, or innovations that will be very useful for the business. The other thing that we've seen is the need to also pay very close attention to safety and security of occupiers of buildings. No? And that means that we have to adhere to the strict guidelines of the Department of Labor and Employment. They have this prescribed airflow rate for the office premises, no, that had to be adhered to. So at Robinson's offices, in our planning, we made sure that we will be able to not only exceed, no, but probably times three of the prescribed requirement in terms of the airflow rate, just to be able to ensure the health and well-being of our occupiers.
Right. Thank you. You've already touched on some aspects of changes in design, right? And but can you speak more about what would be the elements of a future-proof workspace that will be a standard in the next few years? You've already said initially we had acrylic barriers, then we just got rid of that, and people have been coming back to the offices. And oh, by the way, have your staff is 100% of your staff is back?
We're work on site. That's correct. We are work on site, 100%.
Right. So people are coming back, and something that has been proven valuable is the interpersonal dealings in the office.
Correct.
And so, what have been the lessons of past 2 years, and how will that affect office design, particularly in your projects? For instance, we've read that as workers have become more mobile, no? Cubicles in offices have disappeared. Interior designs have become more modular, meaning they're easily changed. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's the beauty, you know. I mean, I think first let's touch a little bit on mental health. One of the challenges I think that has been raised from the work from home is that it's been quite difficult. Sometimes people feel isolated. So we are social beings now, and more often than not, we really need to interact with our fellow human beings now. So I think the work on site or coming back to work now, has been a breath of fresh air, because now we've had this opportunity to be able to see each other. And what we did was, in the new workspace, or the better normal, we wanted to create a home away from home. So what does that mean? We wanted to make sure that there are opportunities to create and increase productivity. The office tools, the internet connection, the backup generators ensure continuity of work, basically when you're already on site. But what we did was we added elements. So we put in what we refer to as the sala or living room in our workspace. So these people, when they basically say that they want to step out of the office for the time being to be able to unwind a bit or to relax and gain fresh perspective, we created that space for them in the office. And at the same time, I think we also have this billiard table, we have this ping pong table, we have games of the general, we have board games like chess. So to be able to create this environment where people can really not just work, but be able to interact and make work fun. So also we have this Fridays get together where basically we have pizza, or we have fun. We have this open mics in the offices. So anything and everything that makes it very fun to be able to get back to the workspace. And we have a town hall where people can gather, and that town hall also serves as a venue where we can have First Friday masses. Again, taking care not only of the mental well-being, but also of the spiritual as well. So all of these activities, I refer to them as the software, the hardware being providing them the right spaces and the right areas within the environment, so that there's the blurring of lines, no, between working on site and working from home. So you make it very fun, no, for them to come back to work.
Right. So the human factor has really come into play in the design of offices. Uh,
Correct.
in this changing environment for offices, particularly for your projects, what kinds of technologies have been incorporated, and can you give us an idea of technologies that you are looking at that can be incorporated in the future?
We're very careful, no? When we're talking about technology. It has to be proven, tried and tested. At some point, we've heard about putting in certain wireless technology in rooms or in work areas to be able to monitor utilization, no? And if they are underutilized, then they will be repurposed. So that is an interesting technology that one wants to look into. But for us, I think it's important, no, that aside from technology is productivity, right? So we always want to make sure that the internet speed or the bandwidth, no, is more than adequate for us to be able to operate. No? Because understandably, we also have some clients that do hybrid or are some are work from home. So we want to be able to accommodate that because we're 100% work on site. No? So productivity tools, sometimes because of new technology, wireless can now be comparable, no, to connected or wired offices. But again, the flexibility that it affords you is that you're able to repurpose, no, this modular type equipment or furniture. So that gives you added flexibility. The other thing that I think, found very useful is we have this privacy pods, no, or meeting pods. So it's not a meeting room, but it's an area where it's like a house inside a house where you have a desk in the middle of a covered roof-like facility. So we'd be glad to share that and show you that in person, really, at some point. No? But to add to that, we also have a phone booth. No? So this phone booth, basically, what it does is one person can fit into that phone booth. So if that person has a video call, then it doesn't have to take up an entire conference room. No? That's good for 8 or 10 people. So it makes it very efficient, but at the same time, soundproof, proper ventilation with whiteboard, with proper outlets to plug your computer and your phone into. And we have 3 of those strategically located in our office. So it's a model. It's a model that we hope we can share, no, with our peers, so that it can help facilitate the coming back to the workplace.
Is that like a prototype design, or is it something already that's commercial? I mean, that's commercially in the design already.
It was customized. No? It started with Workable. Workable is our co-working flexible workspace. No? So rent per use. So when we saw that being used there, it was being utilized very efficiently and effectively. We said we want to definitely use this in our office, the new office that we are into already. And every time we have clients, every time we have guests, it is always a conversation piece. No? They always talk about, this is really very interesting, very nice. And so it comes to a point when they ask us how much it's going to cost and things like that. So, but, to see is to believe. So again, we hope you can come and visit us one of these days.
Yes, thank you. Well, you said it. There's a widespread perception that with every improvement comes cost. So, can you tell us how have these changes affected cost for you?
No, cost benefit, no, this analysis. Although you might have to spend a little bit more, again, productivity. That's what I want to emphasize. Because if that person who had to do a video call will be sitting in a similar conference room that I'm in right now, that's good for 8 people, isn't that a waste of space? Right? So you're only one. And you have to make a video call, but you can't afford to have background noise. you can't afford to be heard by some of your colleagues because it's kind of private, the discussion that you're having. So you spend a little, but you increase productivity and you free up other rooms that can be used for meetings and collaboration. So that is what we refer to as a very efficient use of space.
Well, thank you. Let's now go to your observations on your industry. So, at this point in time, which macro indicators do you in the industry and your own company? So, which ones do you watch at this point?
I think very obvious would be inflation,
Mm,
and we're also closely monitoring the exchange rate. No?
mm,
Uh, then, of course, the usual factors on GDP
mm,
and things like that. So let me explain. Let me elaborate a bit.
mm,
Number one, inflation, because again, when there are increasing costs, no? I mean, electricity, all of these things that have to be shouldered, no? And not just by the landlord, but also by our tenants and occupiers. No? So that can put a lot of pressure in terms of your profitability. But again, we all need to learn how to live with that inflation. And I think very mindful also. No? We want to, I talked about electricity. No? So part of future proofing the workspace is the sustainability angle also. No? We have made very conscious efforts, no, to make our buildings as green as possible. No? We have a number of buildings that are already LEED certified, LEED Gold, LEED Silver in our Bridgetown destination state, Texas, Zeta, Terra. And more are coming. More are coming. As a matter of fact, we already made that commitment. No? As Robinson's offices, we already said that new office buildings, no, that will be constructed in Metro Manila will all be applied for LEED certification,
mm,
whether it's silver or gold. So that is very important because we are very particular about our ESG, our ESG initiatives. And equally important is that our tenants are fully aware that when they come into our buildings, particularly the newer buildings, that it is already equipped, no, for that. Now, exchange rate. Why the exchange rate? you know, in some industries, when the dollar strengthens vis-a-vis the peso, it can be quite encouraging, no? Particularly for the BPO, because they earn in dollars, they pay in peso. So, in other words, it's becoming more and more attractive, no, for these outsourcing companies to come and visit and look at their Manila strategy or the Philippine strategy, because their dollar is more powerful right now, which means they can literally get more space for the same amount of expense that they used to budget before. So, of course, that can also have some negative impact, no? Because when you import goods, particularly on construction, these are all imported, particularly like the elevators, escalators, air conditioning equipment. Then that can be a challenge as well. No? But you have to learn how to be able to balance all of those things because at the end of the day, we continue to operate, we continue to create jobs, and hopefully that will also translate into positive gains for our other businesses. For example, the malls. No? Once you have a captive market in our destination state like Bridgetown, a lot of BPO workers there, then our malls tend to benefit from that as well with customers, no, coming from the BPO and outside of that. So GDP, obviously, we're monitoring how are things as a general outlook in terms of the Philippines. Is there more consumption spending? Are we having more opportunities to provide more services? Are there? How is the supply demand scenario? Not just for office, no, but for residential, for retail, for hotels, no, and then all of those other things that we need to continually monitor. So a lot of these factors that affect our business are important for us to carefully watch, and as they develop, we make the appropriate strategies, no, to taking those things into consideration.
right. Well, you already mentioned inflation, and that's very much tied up with interest rates. No? And right now, we are in a period of rising borrowing costs. In fact, tomorrow or on Thursday, the central bank is expected to increase interest rates by another 50 basis points. And so how do these two factors affect you? For instance, in terms of rental rates, and also have you seen an effect on demand so far?
Okay. Again, inflation, we talked a little bit about that earlier, and then interest rates. Again, it definitely has an impact, no, in terms of cost of money, no, and cost of doing business. But at the same time, you look at the supply scenario and the demand scenario as with regard to offices. No? What is quite encouraging on the demand side is that we've seen a lot of the BPO companies, no, with renewed interest to take more spaces. No? And what we have discussed before about the hub and spoke model is happening right now. No? So the main hub being Metro Manila, and you are seeing more and more of these BPOs going into the provinces. No? Going into provinces like Iloilo, Bacolod, Cebu, Davao, and several of these other areas, no, that are benefiting right now from the growth. I think the idea here is to be able to tap labor that's closer to where they live in the provinces. We all know, no, that during the pandemic, when all of the a good number of executives that decided to go back to the provinces and have stayed there with their families, are now becoming a new source of labor. No? These are supervisor levels, executives. So a good time to really set up in the provinces and grow. So we've seen that. We've seen a good amount of BPO growth. Um, Again, I think in a way there's a bit of an offset. Yes, interest rates are going up. Uh, uh, then you have the rental rates. Again, because of there is a supply oversupply situation. We are aware of that in terms of office. But the good news is it's not because of terminations. It's really because the projects that were started by developers way back are now starting to get completed. No? And because of the encouraging signs that BPO is coming back, not just BPO, no? But there are also demands from non-traditional, like the data centers that are coming in, looking at the Philippines in a big way. So I think there are more opportunities now that we can take advantage of if you are able to look at the right place and tap the right market.
Yes, speaking of demand, if I recall right, the central bank's business expectation survey showed overall sentiment improving, especially in the first two quarters of this year, but still short of 2019 levels, a little bit short of that. Uh, when do you expect demand for office buildings to return to pre-pandemic levels, or have they already returned to that?
We're getting, no, we're getting to that point, no, that we're inching slowly but surely into that territory. No? It's kind of challenging to predict when exactly that will happen. But if we are going to base it on what's happening right now in terms of demand and take up, then it should happen sooner rather than later. No? So I think that is one encouraging point that we want to
So
emphasize.
within the year, you think?
Well, might be too soon. No? I think within the year might be too soon. We have to keep in mind that you know the good news is even though there seems to be some uptick, no, in terms of COVID cases, most of the time it's been very mild. So the hospitalization rate is not very alarming. So that is one very encouraging factor. That's why I think the return to office has been boosted, no, by this confidence, no, that even though there's a bit of an uptick in terms of COVID cases, that most of the time or mostly it's been mild. Of course, that's not to say that we will let our guards down. That's why we continue to implement disinfection. So we have automatic alcohol dispensers in strategic locations. We still have that hybrid metal detectors with thermal scanners to scan for temperature reading. So we're still taking the necessary precautions to ensure that whatever gains we have already achieved in the past months will continue moving forward.
Well, looking outside, there's also that widely held expectation of a global slowdown or even a recession, at least in the US this year. Does it, I mean, how does that affect your own expectations and plans?
The interesting point there is, sometimes we talk about recession or difficulties in developed economies, and it might have a chilling effect, no, on developing economies like the Philippines. But maybe I can give a kind of a different perspective on this. No? When developed economies face challenging times, there is this pressure to cut costs. And when you talk about cutting costs, in some cases, in most cases potentially, we may benefit. No? The Philippines can benefit from that because we know for a fact that quality-wise, services, business process outsourcing, business process management is very comparable, if not better, no, than developed economies for a fraction of the cost. So what that basically means is that should that happen, and of course we're not saying it should, and we don't want that to happen, but that can present a new set of opportunities for the Philippines. So those that have not yet outsourced may now look at the advantage or the necessity of outsourcing to the Philippines because of the need to cut costs. So it might be a different perspective, country to country.
Mm. Is there any particular technology that you are closely looking at or that excites you?
Well, I think the e-commerce aspect of it, actually, if you want to go to the next level, the social commerce aspect of it. No? So it's basically you're blending social media with e-commerce, no? Those two together. So that can potentially create some very interesting value proposition for our tenants or captive market. No? So being able to track certain pain points or being able to address their needs proactively, no? So providing services that they still don't have. So we are interested to explore that because again, a lot of us are very much into social media right now. A lot of us have downloaded in our phones a lot of this application. So how do we now tap into those social networks and be able to convert them into purchases or e-commerce related transactions?
Okay, so given that environment scan, can you just give us a short glimpse of expansion plans for Robinson's Land?
So as I mentioned earlier, really, we were talking about having our hub in Metro Manila. So we have our Bridgetown destination estate, and
We will be incorporating different property formats such as a shopping center, residences, workplaces, hospitality facilities, institutional developments, social civic centers, and iconic art installations, all within a dynamic new setting.
several more office projects happening in Metro Manila. But being also mindful, having a presence in Iloilo, in Bacolod, in Davao. So we are continuing to grow our office footprint to be able to address demand, particularly in the provinces as they grow. So today we have completed projects and ongoing projects, more than 400,000 square meters and growing. So if you compare that to our RCR portfolio, when we listed in our IPO, it was about 425,000 square meters. So you can see that there is a good opportunity for growth just on the office side alone, because RLC being the sponsor that has injected assets into RCR continues to build and continues to grow its office portfolio.
Okay, just to close our conversation today, can you tell us what policies and what reforms would the property sector need to recover and more than recover, grow in the next 6 years?
Oh, that's a good question. For one, I think there is, in my mind, particular interest on the energy sector. If we can develop the right policies, and when I say right policies, I think we need to find a way to really catch on in terms of renewable energy sources. So that is going to be very key. Please keep in mind that a lot of the Fortune 500 companies right now who are becoming very particular about ESG will somehow require developers like ourselves to have a very keen focus on addressing renewable energy sources. So if we can have policies in government that will incentivize renewable energy sources, that can be a benefit, no? Not just office, no? But the entire industry, whether it's hotel, malls, residences, that can be very useful. The other thing I think we should look at into is transportation. So when we talk about transportation, I'm not just talking about the mass rail transit system, the subway system, but also in terms of the airports. No? When we decide that we will develop new airports, we really have to put our heart and soul into it, no? So that not only because when you're able to bring in more tourists, no? That will benefit the hotel sector. But also these business people, when they come and visit the Philippines, they know that there are a lot of opportunities, no? For business to be had in our country. And the last aspect, I think, is probably our material resources, no? Mining. What will be our view on that? Remember, we are a resource-rich country. And when steel becomes very expensive, and other raw materials, no, become very expensive. And if we are able to source them locally and we are able to develop our steel industry, then can you imagine the big effect, the big impact it can have on our property sector, you know, residential, office, malls, and all of those things. You know? So being able to source the right amount of raw materials for our projects at reasonable prices can really help propel the industry to newer heights.
All right, Mr. Gold, thank you for sharing your insights and your time with us today.
Thank you, Willie.
Thank you, sir. And that caps this interview. Thank you for watching.